You felt it get real this week, didn't you? Not dramatic, not a declaration. Just a moment, maybe over a message, maybe in a memory that surfaced out of nowhere, where something between you stopped being abstract and started being close. A softness came through. A window opened. For a second, it actually felt possible again. And then he was gone. Not gone in the sense of disappearing completely, gone in the smaller, more disorienting way. Shorter replies, a day of silence where there used to be none. A subtle flattening in his energy, like a door easing shut an inch at a time so you almost cannot pinpoint the moment it closed. You have seen this before. You have felt this exact retreat happen at this exact stage in the pattern more times than you can count, always right after something opened, never during the distance itself. You probably felt it in your body before your mind caught up to what was happening. A small drop in your stomach when his reply came back shorter than you expected. A specific kind of confusion that is different from ordinary disappointment. The confusion of watching someone move away from something that was, only hours earlier, moving toward you. Not gradually cooling, retreating. There is a difference, and your body knows it even when your mind is still trying to construct an explanation that makes it hurt less. And underneath the confusion, if you are honest with yourself, there is a familiar exhaustion, because this is not the first time. You can probably trace this same shape back through the earlier weeks of this connection, maybe even further, a moment of real contact followed by an unexplained cooling, followed eventually by a slow return, followed eventually by another opening, followed eventually by another retreat. You have been living inside this rhythm for a while now, and this week is simply the most recent turn of it. If you have noticed him pull back the moment things start to feel real between you, leave a like and subscribe so you do not lose this thread. Drop the words "I see the pattern now" in the comments below. Because what is happening in him at that exact moment is not about you, and understanding what it actually is changes everything about how you hold it. Before we go any further, I want to put something in front of you. Every time he pulls back like this, you are left guessing. Filling his silence with your own worst interpretations, wondering if this is the retreat that does not reverse. That guessing costs you real nights of peace. Story after story your mind builds with no information underneath it. A twin flame union personal reading ends the guessing. Built from your name, your date of birth, your exact time of birth, and your place of birth. It names exactly where this connection stands right now, and what his retreat actually means beneath the surface. Stop interpreting. His silence in the dark. The link is in the description below. Now, let us look at what is actually happening when he does this. Here is the part almost nobody explains to you clearly. His retreat is not a response to something you did. It is a response to something he felt. There is a specific and very common pattern in early separation, where the divine masculine becomes most avoidant, not when the connection is distant, but when it is closest. The moment real closeness becomes available is the moment his system decides it is under the most threat. Think about that for a second, because it is counterintuitive and it matters. You would expect him to run when things are bad between you, when there is conflict, distance, disappointment. That would make a kind of sense your nervous system could accept. But this is not what is happening. What is happening is that he runs when things are good, when you offer him something real, when the mask of casualness slips and what is underneath gets seen. That is the trigger, not rejection, reception. This is the part of him that has almost nothing to do with you as a person and almost everything to do with a program that started running decades before you ever met him. Somewhere in his early life, being truly seen was not safe. Maybe it meant being needed by someone who could not meet that need. Maybe it meant being responsible for an adult's emotional world before he had the capacity to carry that. Maybe it meant that closeness always preceded some kind of loss, a parent's withdrawal, an inconsistency he could never predict, a household where love and danger lived closer together than they should have. Whatever the specific shape of it, the lesson landed the same way it lands for almost every divine masculine who runs at this exact moment. Closeness equals risk. And risk, to a nervous system that learned this young, is not a feeling to sit with. It is a signal to leave. You will likely never get the full story of what shaped this in him, not because he is hiding it deliberately, but because most people carrying this pattern do not have conscious access to its origin either. They simply know that something in them recoils the moment things get too good, too close, too real, without being able to name why. He may describe it, if he describes it at all, as needing space, or feeling overwhelmed, or not being ready. Language that sounds like a choice but is actually closer to a report from a much older part of his nervous system than the version of him doing the talking. So when you offer him something real, when the connection between you stops being safely abstract and becomes an actual bid for intimacy, his system does not experience that as good news. It experiences it as the oldest danger it knows. And it does what it was trained to do a long time ago. It creates distance before the distance can be created for him. The word sabotage makes it sound intentional, like he is choosing, with some clear part of his mind, to damage something good. That is almost never what this actually is. What is actually happening is closer to a fire alarm going off in a house with no fire. The alarm is real. The sound is loud. The response it triggers, pulling back, going quiet, creating physical or emotional space, is completely real and completely disruptive. But the fire it is responding to is not happening now. It happened a long time ago, in a much smaller version of him, in a home or a relationship or a series of moments that taught his body that closeness is where the danger lives. He is not protecting himself from you. He is protecting a version of himself that no longer exists, using a strategy that made sense for a child and makes very little sense for the grown man currently retreating from a woman who actually wants him. This is the tragedy underneath most divine masculine avoidance, and it is worth sitting with for a moment instead of rushing past it. The very thing he wants most, real closeness, real seeing, a connection where he does not have to perform, is the exact thing his nervous system has been trained to treat as a threat. He is not choosing distance because he does not want you. He is choosing distance because some younger part of him has never learned that wanting someone and being safe with them can coexist. You are watching a defense system built for an entirely different war, still firing in a life where the original danger is gone. Picture what this actually looks like from inside him, even though he would likely never describe it this way out loud. A warmth arrives, an easy exchange, a moment where the two of you are simply present with each other without effort. For a few minutes, maybe a few hours, something in him relaxes into it. And then, almost without his conscious participation, a different part of his system registers what is happening as significant, not as good news, as exposure, as the specific configuration of closeness that, somewhere far earlier in his life, preceded pain he had no way to protect himself from. The alarm sounds, and the retreat that follows is not a decision so much as a reflex, faster than thought, older than the current relationship, running on instructions written before he had any say in the matter. That does not make his retreat comfortable to be near. It does not mean you have to absorb it without limits or wait indefinitely for him to outgrow a wound you cannot heal for him. But it does mean something important. It means his retreat this week was never a verdict on your worth, your effort, or the reality of what exists between you. It was a nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do the moment safety and closeness arrived in the same room together. Right around this point in the journey, women often ask themselves the same question in different words. Am I actually growing through this, or am I just surviving it? That question deserves a real answer, not a guess, which is part of why so many divine feminine women going through early separation have started using something simple alongside their inner work. A twin flame journey tracker and progress workbook exists for exactly this reason, not to give you more information to consume, but to give you a way to see your own movement in black and white instead of relying on your mood on any given day to tell you whether you are progressing. When you can track the stage you are actually in, log the synchronicities that keep showing up, and look back at your own reflections from a few weeks ago, the spinning feeling starts to lose its grip. because you can finally see, in your own handwriting, that you are not standing still. You are moving. The proof is right there on the page, even on the days it does not feel that way. Developmental psychology has a specific way of describing what you are watching in him, and it is worth naming plainly because naming it changes how you hold it. Every adult carries an earlier version of themselves inside their nervous system, formed in the years before language and logic could fully organize experience. That earlier self does not disappear as we age. It gets layered over by an adult personality, adult competence, an adult ability to function in the world. But under pressure, especially the pressure of real emotional intimacy, that earlier self is often the one actually running the response. Not the adult man who can hold a job, make decisions, present himself with confidence to the world. The much younger part of him that learned, long before he had words for it, what closeness costs. This is why his retreat can look so disproportionate to what is actually happening between you. From the outside, nothing catastrophic occurred. You offered warmth. You were real with him. And his response looks on the surface wildly out of scale with that gesture. But it is not out of scale to the part of him that is actually responding. To that part, the offer of real closeness is not a small thing. It is the exact configuration of circumstances that once meant danger, replayed in an adult body with adult stakes. Reparenting is the term used for the slow internal work of a person learning to meet their own younger self with the safety that was missing the first time. It is not work you can do for him. It is not work you can accelerate by loving him harder or explaining the pattern to him more clearly, however much you may want to. It is entirely internal, entirely his, and it happens on a timeline that has nothing to do with how ready you are for him to arrive there. What you can do is recognize what you are actually looking at when he retreats, not indifference, not a closed door on the two of you. A frightened, much younger part of a grown man, using the only strategy it has ever known the moment the stakes got real. Understanding that does not make the waiting easy, but it changes what the waiting means. You are not waiting for a man who does not want you. You are witnessing, from a slight distance, an old wound doing what old wounds do when they meet the thing they actually need to heal. There is a particular kind of grief in loving someone whose deepest fear is the exact thing you are offering him. You are not withholding love to punish him. You are simply watching him flinch away from the very love he has likely spent his whole adult life quietly hoping someone would offer. That flinch is not a rejection of you specifically. It is the oldest reflex in him, meeting the newest and most real thing that has happened to him in a long time. None of this means you are responsible for staying in a holding pattern indefinitely, absorbing retreat after retreat without any acknowledgement of what it costs you. Understanding his pattern does not obligate you to endless patience. It simply gives you a more accurate map of what you are navigating, so the retreat lands as information about him rather than a verdict about you. This stage of the journey, early separation, tends to be the stage where this exact pattern shows up most sharply, because it is the stage where the two of you are still learning the shape of each other's defenses in real time. You have not yet developed the steadiness that later stages often bring. Neither has he. Every retreat can still feel, in the moment, like proof that this was never going to work. Every reopening can still feel, in the moment, like final confirmation that it will. Neither read is accurate yet. You are both still early in learning what closeness with each other actually requires, and what it costs each of you individually to offer it. So what do you actually do with this? Practically, the next time you feel him easing that door shut. First, resist the urge to chase the closeness back into existence. Reaching harder in the exact moment he is retreating tends to confirm at the nervous system level that closeness really was dangerous, because now it comes wrapped in pressure. Give the retreat room instead of racing to close the distance yourself. Second, do not translate his retreat into a story about your own worth. This is the part that costs divine feminine women the most. The quiet internal narrative that starts running the moment he goes quiet. the one that says if you had been different, softer, less, more, something, he would not have pulled away. That story is not true, and repeating it to yourself only teaches your own nervous system a version of the same lesson has already learned, that closeness is something you have to earn by shrinking. Third, keep building your own life with or without his presence in it on any given week, not as a strategy to win him back, though it often has that effect, but because a woman with a full, rooted life is far less destabilized by his coming and going than a woman whose entire emotional weather depends on his last message. What this stage is actually teaching you, if you let it, is not a lesson about him. It is a lesson about your own capacity to stay rooted in your own worth, regardless of the state of his nervous system on any given day. His retreat is information about him. It is not a referendum on you. Learning to hold both of those truths at once, that his pattern is real and disruptive, and that it has nothing to do with your value, is the actual work of this exact stage. You do not need him to have already done his healing for this connection to be real. You do not need his nervous system to already be regulated for what exists between you to matter. What you need right now in this early and uneven stage is your own steadiness. Not a steadiness that pretends his retreat does not hurt, a steadiness that lets it hurt without letting it. Define what you believe about yourself or about the truth of this connection. He will keep circling back toward closeness and away from it for a while yet. That is simply what early separation with an avoidant nervous system looks like from the outside. Your task is not to stop the circling. It is to build a life and a sense of self solid enough that the circling does not knock you off your own center each time it happens. There is something worth naming here about timing, because it is easy in this stage to assume his current pace is his permanent pace. It is not. Early separation is, almost by definition, the roughest and least predictable stretch of this entire journey. The period where old patterns are the loudest precisely because they have not yet been worn down by enough repetition, enough safety, enough evidence that this connection is different from whatever taught him closeness was dangerous in the first place. The retreat you are watching now is not necessarily the retreat you will be watching 6 months from now, or a year from now, once enough of these cycles have passed and his system has, slowly, begun collecting different evidence. That does not mean you owe him unlimited time to arrive there. It means the current shape of his avoidance is not a fixed diagnosis. It is a snapshot of where he is on a road that most people in his position do. Eventually, keep walking, at their own pace, in their own time, in whatever direction their own internal work takes them. The version of him capable of staying close without retreating is still forming. You are not wrong for wanting him now. You are simply early, standing at the beginning of a process that asks more patience of you than almost anything else you have done. Let that be true without letting it become a verdict. The door he keeps easing shut is not locked. It is being learned, one closeness and one retreat at a time, by a man who is further behind you on this particular skill than you may have realized, and who is, in his own uneven way, still trying.